Welcome to the Lipoedema podcast, hosted by Shell and Tiana. Our aim is to make noise around lipedema and educate as many people as we can about this disease.
Our guest list contains professionals who work in the field and women who live with lipedema. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Shelley.
Hey there, Tiana. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited that we are finally doing this together.
I know. You're all better now. It's been a wild ride to this point.
I know, and I must put a disclaimer out to our listeners that if one of us coughs or sniffles, both of us have been through the winter blues over the past couple of weeks. So hopefully we don't ruin the very first podcast with our cold and flu symptoms. But here we are.
Yeah, keeping it real. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, why not, right? I guess I just wanted to say welcome to everyone for joining us. I thought we could call this episode 0 and just give everyone a little insight into how Shell and I got to this point of deciding to start this podcast. And because it was your amazing idea, Shell, I wanted to ask you, first and foremost, why? Tell me why.
Well, everywhere I looked and started researching, everything had like an American voice or an English voice to it, like UK women. And I really thought we needed some Aussies to lead the charge and really build more community here for us, like listening to our voices with our mannerisms. Like, it's something that a lot of times when I was listening to other people, it was like, oh, what do they mean? Was it healthcare providers? I can't remember the words and the different HBO and all these different things. And I was like, see, that doesn't make any sense to me. So to give it our voice, be talking about Medicare, be talking about private health insurance, I thought we just needed that. We needed to have something homegrown.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'm a podcast lover. I really enjoy listening to podcasts in my personal time, my limited personal time. And so I guess when I first found out my diagnosis, the first thing I did was look on Spotify for a podcast. And at that time, there was no dedicated podcast for lipedema. And only a few months ago did the Lipoedema Mamas podcast come up, and they're two very successful American women who are getting the word out about lipedema in social media space, and I was grateful for that. But you're right, Shell, there really isn't an Australian voice in the lipedema community that could hopefully reach the masses. And I really hope that we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And why can't we?
Oh my gosh, we're doing it already.
If we can make a difference to one person's life, like legacy done, goal achieved. Like, we only need to make a difference to one person's life, really.
I totally agree with you. And it was such a powerful thing when I remember you put up a video recently or a reel on your Instagram page, Lipoedema Lifestyle, where you talked about that very thing. It's like making a difference to even one person, and all the effort is totally worth it. And I feel exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I don't think I told you why I approached you to join me in this little venture.
You didn't. So, please do.
I did it. Well, I was following you on Instagram, and I thought, like, you're younger than me, you're a different stage to me. Like, we had very different lifestyles, but we're both doing our best to manage this condition. I thought to have two different views, two different lifestyles that are coming into this, I thought that we could really work well together.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you approached me. And like I must admit, when you did, my very first instinct was to jump out of my skin and just say 100 times yes. And I thought, Tiana, you're such a yes person. Like, let's think practically about this. How are we going to make this work? And honestly, the more I tried to wrap my head around it, the more every part of me was just screaming, we will work that out, and that this is something that I have to do. And so I'm so glad that you asked me to be a part of this, because I think it's a really big deal and I'm really excited to do it. So
Yay!
you
And you got
mentioned
to start
about,
somewhere.
oh, I totally agree with you. And you just mentioned briefly about how we're both approaching our lipedema differently. And we'll have separate episodes getting into the nitty gritty about one another or just ourselves. But in the meantime, do you want to give a really brief overview of how you came to know about your body and lipedema?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very recent for me. It was only November last year. We're now, well, we'll be in July tomorrow. So it's only very new to me. I was listening to a podcast, and the lady I was listening to, it just sounded like my story. But like so much had led up to that point, which we'll talk about in the episode. But from hearing that, 2 weeks later, I had a diagnosis. Like I was very lucky. I live on the Gold Coast, so I knew that Lipoedema Surgical Solutions was here. Like once I Googled it, I knew where to go. So yeah, very new to all of this, but yeah, a podcast, someone making some noise, and I heard it. So
There you
crazy. How
go.
about you? How did you?
Yeah, so I guess mine was around November as well, or late last year at some time, and I was doing the doom scroll of Instagram late at night, and I came across the Lipedema Mama, which is the American woman that I was speaking about earlier, and she had this reel, and it was like, do you have colon-shaped legs? Do you have excess cellulite? And a couple of other symptoms. You may have lipedema, and I just paused and I thought, that sounds like my legs. And so I then clicked on her profile and started to read more. And I was utterly convinced that very night that that's exactly what I have. And I guess as I researched it, I wasn't really planning on getting a diagnosis, because my thoughts were, well, even if it is what I have, there's nothing I can do about it initially. Um, and then a few months down the track, I thought, actually, I don't want to be wrong about this, and I want some confirmation that this is what I believe I have. Um, because, we do doubt ourselves sometimes, especially as women, and with our bodies, we demand a lot of ourselves. Um, and and sometimes we think, oh, maybe I'm just overly sensitive about my body, and maybe I'm just doing the wrong things, and that's why I'm not seeing results. So I wanted a diagnosis to sort of confirm that I actually did have something, and it wasn't just me not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's what I got. And so I guess from my perspective, I am stage 2. I have lipedema in my full legs and full arms, and I believe they call that type 3 and 4. So 3 is the whole leg, and then 4 is the arms as well. But of course, all across the world, there are different categories of lipedema, so it may not be the same everywhere. And I also found out about a month ago that I have lymphedema as well, which was very interesting to find out. How about you, Shell?
Yeah, yeah. My diagnosis was, yeah, stage 3, 4. Oh, I get so confused with the stages and the levels, but I was like across and down. I
Yeah.
remember, like, you go your stages and your levels, or yeah. So yeah, predominantly column shaped legs, hips, mainly my butt and my arms, and now into my stomach as well, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just want to touch on this because you posted today that 12 years ago, you posted that like your legs were aching, you were just gonna make them shrink. Like, see, this isn't the angle I came to it from because I just thought I was deformed and that was just my legs. So my battle has always been my gut issues, which I now find out are linked anyway. Gut and lipedema are linked. So you've always had larger legs.
I have, but I'd just like to state that the way I perceive my body is in the context of the professional dance world. So it would be, so for a normal person that's not in the dance world, I would consider myself to have a relatively normal sized body. I perceive size 10 to 14 to be quite a normal standard sizing for the general population. But
Yeah.
I was looking at it from the perspective of dance, and that would be a size 6 to 10. So I was always off the mark. So I was comparing my body to these naturally size 6 to 10 ladies, and I was the natural size 12 to 14. And so all of my efforts were about making my body smaller to fit the mold of a dancer. So 12 years ago, I posted on Facebook that I was going to work myself to the bone to get my legs to be smaller, and that my body just needed to comply. And it was interesting when scrolling through my Facebook memories today, because that's probably the first time since knowing about lipedema that I've come across a memory like that. And now I can remember tons of Facebook statuses which go across a similar vein: starting a new diet, exercising to the point of pain, you know. And I'm looking forward to now looking back on my Facebook memories and capturing all of those things and documenting them, just for my own personal lipedema journey, because there has been a lot of those, if I remember, in my past.
Yeah. Yeah. And I must say I cringe a little bit when I see mine pop up as well. But mine are usually like, I've seen a new specialist, let's start this new protocol, let's, get this gut sorted, because that's what I thought everything came down to. And we do know that there's a lot of lymph in our gut. So that it definitely is part of the issue, all of looking after lymph health. So yeah, most of my posts are, some new protocol from some new naturopath. Maybe this is the magic pill. Yeah.
It's amazing what we put our bodies through.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure is. And
So I
I'm
guess
just
we
lucky.
have, sorry, you go, Shell.
No, you're right. I was just going to say, like during COVID, I was very lucky. My boot camp couldn't continue. So instead we went to a food and body freedom type program. And like, I'm so glad I did that before all of this, because I think I would have had a completely different mindset otherwise.
Oh, wow. Yeah, COVID has been so interesting for all of us. I think going through that as a collective, I mean, it affected the entire world. And now I feel like we're all very different people for very different reasons.
For sure.
I forgot what I was going to say before, but I guess I think we've got a really exciting schedule of guests lined up for this podcast. I am particularly interested in hearing other lipedema ladies' stories. I find a lot of power in being able to resonate with people's experience.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I'm excited to bring to our Australian community is those women, to give them a voice in the lipedema community. How about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That is really, and the other thing I'm really excited about is just to have this independent, unbiased podcast where we're not getting royalties, we're not getting paid by anyone. This is just people we're inviting. We've asked our community for suggestions of who they'd like to hear. And like, there's nothing no agenda being pushed here apart from us all making some noise, and I love that.
Me too. We're just being our own advocates. And of course, along the way, we're going to try and collaborate with some professionals that support the lipedema community, be that dietitians and naturopaths and lymphatic specialists, and hopefully surgeons and the nurses involved in those surgical specialties. As many people as we can to come on board to start talking about this. And hopefully that in turn will give the Australian community a bit of a resource about who's who in the zoo, to be able to seek somebody within their geographical location to be able to either seek support or diagnoses or some therapies that can help them along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And also show you where to go for information for your doctor. If your doctor wants to know more, like we'll have Lipoedema Australia. We've got guests coming on from Lipoedema Australia. We can find out what they're up to, what's happening next, what we can do to help them make the noise as well, because we all can work together.
That's such an important question. And I want to make sure that the community, when they do connect with us, probably best to connect with us at the moment on our Instagram page, the Lipoedema Podcast. Please get in touch with us and let us know, first of all, if you'd like to contribute by being on the podcast, but secondly, what you would like to hear from us or from other people, because I think we can all do this together to make this podcast something really valuable.
Yeah, like this podcast, we're hosting it, but it's not our podcast. This is for everybody. This is for all our warriors, the professionals, anyone who feels alone, like you're not alone. We're here, and yeah.
Yeah, well said, Shell. We are here for you. I guess that might wrap up episode 0 for us. And we will
zero done.
Be back. I know. First one in the bank. And what I really want for our next episode, if you would, Shell, is to indulge us in your full lipedema story. So get ready, folks.
All right, I'll get ready.
Awesome.
I can't wait.
Yay, neither can I. Thank you. It was so good to chat with you. I can't wait to get this podcast on the air.
Yes, thank you for joining me, Tiana.
My pleasure. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Oh, wait. Oops, wait.
Thank you for listening to the Lipoedema podcast. Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced on this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shelley and Tiana from the Lipoedema podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.